We all experience challenging and difficult situations in life. In the face of these complexities, it is not always clear how to respond, what to do, or what to avoid. It's easy to get stuck in these moments and stop moving forward in life. Wholeness with Naomi is a program that explores our experiences with such encounters and provides tools and strategies that can enable anyone facing these hardships to continue walking their path in life. We can't wait to meet you on this journey. Tune in, your life is about to change for the better.
Welcome to our show, Wholeness with Naomi, where we look at issues affecting us spiritually, psychologically, and physically. The Word of God encourages us to be diligent in working on all issues affecting the heart. There is nothing that is new under the sun. Even the situation or the challenge that you're going through right now, someone has lived through it and someone was able to overcome it. Through Wholeness with Naomi, we take you back to the community where we say, let's talk about it together by bringing in someone who has walked the journey or someone who's an expert in that particular area. We thrive when we live in a community. We thrive when we have relationships around us. Today on this show, we're going to be talking about finding your purpose in disability. And we have a very special guest with us. Disability is a form of impairedness that affects your ability to perform certain functions. Today in the show, we have Miss Nozi Kanda. Welcome to the show, Miss Nozi.
Thank you very much.
Introduce yourself, share with us your life journey. What can we learn from it?
I work at the Christian Counseling Center.
That's good.
And also work online.
Okay.
I'm also a spiritual director. So a spiritual director is somebody that helps people to notice God in their lives. I'm also a massage therapist. So I get to work with the body as well as the mind.
I didn't know about that. I wish I knew and I would have used your gift.
I was born a premature baby. I was born 5 months or 4 months before I was supposed to be born. So I was born in July, was supposed to be born in November. I was a twin, and there was too much oxygen in the incubator, which is what caused my blindness. My other twin didn't survive, however, because he was too small. The doctors had kind of given up on me. They had decided that I wasn't going to live. After about a few hours after I was born, they kind of put me into the sluice room where they throw away all the rubbish pretty much. And they had kind of given up on me, but I obviously must have cried or something, which kind of made them take me back to my mum. And they would kind of put me in and out of incubators throughout probably my first weeks of life because they didn't really think I was going to survive. So whenever a stronger baby came, they would take me out of the incubator and put another baby in there.
Just pause, Nozi.
Yes.
Just pause. I'm hearing this for the first time, and I'm also equally shocked that is what happened.
Yeah, so I think it would have been really tough for my mum and my dad. Mm-hmm. They're very strong people. I'm really grateful for them. And so after that first few weeks, they kind of realized that I was living, and they discovered that I was blind by then. They kind of initially thought that it might be kind of brain cancer, but as the weeks went on, they figured out that it was just because of the oxygen. So they call it prematurity of retinopathy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So seeing you, talking to you right now is actually a testimony. Having you with us today.
Definitely. So I had a praying grandmother. She went to church one day. So she'd come to look after my mum. This was my mum's mum. and she went to church, and somebody gave her a word of knowledge to say, you know, we see that you have a granddaughter who the doctors, the world is saying is not going to survive. However, God has a plan for her, and one day you're going to send her to do things. And yeah, my grandmother got to live to where I was an age for her to send me to get her things and to you know, look after her somewhat.
What sort of challenges did you face growing up?
So I think the biggest challenge was people's pity.
Okay.
So they would come to our house and, you know, they'd all of a sudden start crying. And it was, you know, it was as if they were coming to a funeral, really. But my parents would always say to them, you know, this is a challenge that God has given us to face, and you know, we're going to do it with God. This is, you know, this is not a mistake that God has made, but we're going to do this with God. So they would always cry about my healing. Another challenge I think I faced was people wanting me to be healed. And
Do share about that, Nozi.
so that was,
Yes.
yeah, that was a bit of a challenge. So everywhere I went, people would pray for me to be healed. And that's not a bad thing. I think we need to pray for people to get healing. And prayer is not a bad thing at all. I think people are entitled to pray for people, and I think it's right to pray for people for healing. But for me, it kind of in some ways made me think that I was failing at this healing thing because I wasn't getting healed.
Nothing wasn't changing.
Yeah, I wasn't getting healed. But at the age of about 12, I got my first Braille Bible, my book of the Bible. So it was the book of Mark. And I started reading that, and then a couple of weeks later I was given the book of John, and I feel like that's kind of what changed my life. A couple of weeks before that, somebody had come to pray for me. That kind of accosted me in the street and said, let's pray for you.
So this continued.
Yes, it
People
continued.
praying for you.
Yeah, it's continued throughout my life. But I feel like this was kind of a turning point for me. So in those few weeks, yeah, this person had accosted me in the street, had said, we need to pray for you. I had acquiesced, and then as soon as they prayed for me, you know, nothing happened. So they were like, oh, you don't have enough faith, you need to find another church, blah, 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 all of these things. I came home with lots of questions to my parents, because I think at that age I was at a questioning kind of, you know, God, what are you doing kind of time. So I said to my parents, you know, what's up with that? Like, why am I not getting healed? Is it because of, you know, some, you know, do I just not have enough faith? And so a couple of, they didn't really have any answers for me, unfortunately. But a couple of weeks later, I was reading the book of John, and I came across John chapter 9. And the story was about Jesus healing the blind man. But that wasn't the purpose of the story for me.
Okay.
So in one of the beginning verses, the disciples asked Jesus, is it, why is this man blind? Is it because of, you know, his parents, or is it because, you know, of whatever's going on for him? Jesus's answer to them is, this man, yes, this man was born blind, but it wasn't, you know, it wasn't because of anything that he's done.
It wasn't anyone's fault.
Exactly. It was so that God's works may be displayed in his life. And that was the answer that I needed to hear at the time.
That was liberating.
Very liberating. That became my life's purpose after that.
Okay.
I realized that I wasn't a mistake, that God hadn't made a mistake, that, yes, you know, it would be great for everyone else if I got healed. For me, it didn't really bother me that I was blind, but it bothered everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of helped me to have a purpose and to think, Lord, I want my life to display your works.
We'll take a short break. Do join us. One of the key things that's coming from, as you're sharing, Nozi, is the support that you had of your parents. To talk about that, how did that help you to navigate through this journey?
So my parents are believers. So they've always encouraged me to pray, read the Bible. So that was a big part of their support. You know, often I'll say to my parents on their birthdays, this is the gift that you've given me that can never be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
It's of being able to pray and read the Bible, because from that I've learned my purpose. I've learned about God. I've learned about who God is in my life. I've learned about the love of God. So that was one of the things that they did. Another thing that they did is that they believed in me. So they sent me to school. They wanted to make sure that I had an education.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they kind of looked for places that would be helpful and supportive for me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't stop me doing things I wanted to do. So as a kid, I used to horse ride. I used to love horse riding. It was one of my favorite things. And I also played the piano. So they took me to piano lessons. You know, they sent me overseas to study. I got a scholarship to study overseas, and they let me go, which is very hard for parents of children with disabilities. They can be overprotective. They can want to shelter their children. And I know for a fact that it was hard for my parents, but they still did it. It took courage. It took bravery for them, and they still did it anyway.
It certainly took a lot of bravery from them. That's powerful, Nozi.
Yeah.
I love the support they gave you. It was as if they never saw you not being able to perform certain functions. They just said, go and do what you can.
Absolutely.
And will allow you.
Absolutely.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Can you take us through some of the tools that you used that enabled you to live a purposeful life?
I think the first tool was the Bible.
Okay.
So just learning about who God is and what God thinks of me. I think with people struggling with disabilities, often there's a lack of acceptance, a lack of not feeling good enough, feeling worthy. And so the Bible really helped me to sink that truth into my heart about who God had created me to be, the purposes that He had for me, the fact that I wasn't a mistake, all those kinds of things. So that was the first tool.
So that was acceptance.
Yes. Yeah, acceptance and love. Okay. Love from God. And learning to love myself, loving who God had created me to be.
Okay.
Another tool was probably the support systems that I had, so good teachers who helped me to navigate the disability. So people have different skills that they have to learn, whatever the disability might be. So for me, for example, it was Braille, you know, learning to read Braille. It was then learning to use a computer. It was learning to navigate different places, so learning to walk with a cane, that kind of thing. So I had a good support system, teachers who knew what they needed to do in order to help me to navigate life well. So, you know, they taught me lots of skills, like, you know, learning to shop for myself, learning to, when I was older, learning to cook for myself, learning to live an independent life. So it's important, I think, to have experts who have dealt with the disability before, to know how to help the person that's struggling with the disability. So even peers were a good support system for me. Peers who accepted me, who were willing to help me to try new skills, with them kind of watching. I think those were the main tools.
That's fine. Thank you, Nozi. So if I got you correctly, Nozi, part of acceptance was also you doing things that would suit you, or looking for things that were applicable for you.
Yes.
Okay.
So sometimes, like technology at the moment is suited to all sorts of disabilities.
Okay.
So we're living in an amazing age where technology is geared for all sorts of different disabilities. And so, I'm thinking about my phone, for example. It's just a normal phone that anyone else can use. But because it has accessibility features, it enables me to use my phone as a person with living with blindness.
What information can you give us to someone who's caring for anyone who has a form of disability?
So the first thing I would say is treat them as you would want to be treated yourself if you were struggling with a disability. So for those parents or caregivers, for example, somebody's been born with a disability, you've just discovered that your child has some sort of disability. The first thing to do is get help. Get help from people who know about the disability, but also people who are able to help you through the grief, because you're grieving the fact that you had all these dreams for this child. While they were in your womb, you dreamt about them, you dreamt about all the things that they could do, and all of those dreams now are not going to happen. They're not going to happen in the ways that you thought they were going to happen. So my advice, my encouragement is to go and get help for yourself, to grieve through that process, to grieve through your lost dreams, and also to get help in terms of how to deal with that particular disability.
Just take us through that. What is involved in that process?
So it's acknowledging, I think, that those dreams have been lost. It's being able to say to somebody honestly, these are the things that I believed would happen for my child. These are the things that I wanted for my child. However, they're not going to happen in that way. So usually that person would go and see a counselor, and the counselor would kind of take them through the process of, working through those questions, the questions that they might have now, the kind of dreams that they may have had. They might get them to write a letter maybe to their baby, obviously, that they're never going to send, that kind of thing. So I think there's lots of different ways of being able to grieve those things. But a counsellor would be able to take them through that process. Yeah. For the caregiver, then they would need to find a support group, I think, of other people that have gone through a similar process. So other parents, other spouses, for example, they would just need to be able to find someone to be able to go through those things. So, thinking about spouses, for example, that have lost, that have a person who's lost, who has a disability, they would have to also go through the same process of grief, because they would have had their own dreams of what their marriage was going to look like, etc. So I think we all go through that kind of grieving process.
We'll take a short break. Do join us. What things did you even see your parents also, putting in place or doing to ensure that environment was also good for you as well?
I think, so I can only speak from my parents'
Okay.
kind of point of view, or the things I've heard them talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think what helped them was to have a really good friendship group
Okay.
that was going to support them in raising me. So they had a couple of friends. I remember my dad saying that he had a friend come to him, while he was still kind of grieving, and say to him, listen, who would you have liked this to happen to? God has given you this child to look after, and it's your responsibility to look after them. And we will help you to do that, but you need to kind of take that responsibility. So sometimes we just need to be, firmly told to take responsibility. And I feel like that was really helpful for my parents.
Okay.
And so, they had a strong friendship group, and so they would make sure that I was with them, or was taken care of by them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They also, I think they had a real strong belief in the end that God had given them this responsibility to look after me.
Mm-hmm.
And so they fully believed in that. So whenever people would come and say, oh, you need to go do this, and you need to go and go to this person, and maybe they can help you, they stuck to their guns, and they didn't, they did the things that they believed were good for me, like giving me independence, and, my dad getting me a tricycle when I was like 6, and I got to ride around the house, and, that kind of thing. He believed that, and he still believes that I can do anything. So does my mum. So I think it's really the fact that they believed that I could do something. That was what was helpful for them. Social media is a huge thing at the moment. So, and there's groups about every single thing under the sun.
There are so many groups.
Yes. So you will find a particular group for the challenge that you're facing, a support group for people who are caring for others.
Nozi, what final remarks do you have for the viewers?
I think for those caring for a person with a disability, firstly, there's always going to be hope. There's always hope. It's not the end of the world that this person that you're caring for has a disability. There's always going to be life after that disability. There's life within that disability. God always brings beauty out of ashes. The ashes of your dreams, the ashes of those things that you thought were going to happen in your lives. God will always bring beauty. And similar things for those who are living with a disability, whether it's from birth or whether it's something that they are now just coming to terms with. There's always going to be hope. You have so much life to live. There's so much that you are capable of doing. It may not look like you thought it was going to look like. In fact, it may be very different from what you thought it was going to be like, because some disabilities can feel a lot more debilitating. So just remember that there's always things that you can do. And God doesn't make mistakes. God always redeems the things that happen to us. He always works things for good. And so while you're struggling, while you're grieving through the things that you're coming to terms with, my hope, my prayer is that you will remember that God will work it for good. Do all the grieving that you need to do. Do your lamenting, because it's so important to do that. But there will be life after this, and you're such a gift to the world. Remember that even with the disabilities that you have, you're a gift to the world, and the world needs you.
That's powerful, Nozi. And those will be my concluding remarks as well. You are a gift to the world. God doesn't make mistakes. The world needs you as you are. Do join us for the next episode. In the meantime, continue living life in wholeness. Thank you.